we're tackling Jordan Peterson's sixth rule from 12 Rules for Life.
The big one. Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world.
Exactly.
Right.
And our mission here is to really get under the skin of this rule. What does it actually mean?
Right. Why does it resonate? And crucially, how can you, listening now, make it work in your own life? Practical stuff.
Okay, so Peterson kicks things off with a pretty heavy idea. He suggests that some extreme violence, even if it looks secular on the surface, stems from something deeper, a rejection of life itself. He calls it a problem at a religious depth.
Yeah. He points to events like Sandy Hook, the Colorado theater shooting, Columbine. Horrific examples.
And it's the mindset behind them he's trying to unpack.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That quote from one of the Columbine shooters, it's stark, talking about humanity being worthless, wanting to kill mankind.
It's not just anger, is it? It's something else.
It's a fundamental disagreement with existence. Viewing being itself as inequitable and harsh, like reality itself is the enemy.
To help us grasp this kind of intense negativity, he brings in a literary figure.
Mephistopheles, from Goethe's Faust.
Right, the spirit who negates. Peterson highlights his core belief
That all that comes to be deserves to perish wretchedly. Basically, nothing should exist. It's this deep, hateful core Peterson sees in that kind of vengeful destruction.
Wow, okay.
But importantly, he also says we can encounter echoes of this Mephistophelian manner in our own lives.
How so?
Well, think about when you face real injustice or tragedy or just your own limitations, that little voice that starts questioning everything, that feeling that existence is fundamentally flawed.
Okay, the why me or why is the world like this kind of feeling.
Exactly, that temptation to curse existence itself, it can creep in.
Which naturally brings us to the fact that life, well, it is difficult. Peterson doesn't sugarcoat it.
Not at all. Pain, destruction, despair, illness, getting older, death, it's all baked in.
And when that stuff hits us, our instinct often is to find someone or something to blame.
Totally. Think about a child getting really sick. That agonizing why is almost automatic.
Or even, less dramatic things. Getting audited, a messy divorce. The frustration makes you look for a cause, a fault.
Right, and Peterson even uses Tolstoy as an example, hugely successful guy, right? But even he hit a point where he questioned the whole meaning of it all.
So it's not just people in obvious dire straits who feel this.
Yeah.
This urge to blame existence.
Precisely. Tolstoy apparently identified 4 ways people try to cope with that feeling of meaninglessness.
Okay, what were they?
First, sort of childlike ignorance or denial. Second, just chasing mindless pleasure.
Trying to distract yourself.
Yeah. Third, just carrying on with a life that feels meaningless out of weakness, maybe. And fourth, the extreme, suicide, actively ending it.
But Peterson takes Tolstoy's point and pushes it further.
He does. He argues that this deep dissatisfaction, this rejection of being, doesn't just lead to suicide. It can manifest outwards as murder, even mass murder.
As a kind of protest.
A twisted, horrific, but maybe more effective existential protest in his view. And he cites that grim statistic about mass killings in the U.S. up to mid-2016 to underscore how real this is.
It's a disturbing thought. And he connects this kind of modern violence back to something ancient.
Yeah, the story of Cain and Abel, right at the beginning, after Eden.
The first murder.
And of fratricide, importantly, killing his innocent brother. Peterson suggests the motivation might have been this profound resentment, maybe even aimed at God, at the Creator, for perceived unfairness, a way to spite reality itself.
So this sets up a kind of fundamental choice, doesn't it, when faced with suffering?
Right. Vengeance or transformation, the desire to lash out, to get revenge on the world is powerful.
He gives an example, Carl Panzram.
Yeah, a truly extreme case.
Yeah.
Horrific childhood leading to this immense rage against everyone, against God. A life dedicated to destruction as a response to his own suffering.
And you can, on some level, understand that impulse, right? When terrible things happen, wanting revenge feels visceral, almost justified sometimes.
It's understandable, certainly. But Peterson contrasts this path with another possibility. Transformation.
Okay.
He shares some really powerful stories. An indigenous artist who endured awful trauma, but channeled it into reviving his culture, finding peace.
Wow.
And a client who actively worked to break a destructive family pattern, raising a son who is well-adjusted. It shows that the cycle can be broken.
It reminds me of Nietzsche's idea that suffering itself doesn't dictate the outcome. It's how we interpret it.
Exactly. Nietzsche said distress allows for different interpretations, that you can learn good even from experiencing evil. Peterson uses the analogy of child abuse.
Right, that while some victims tragically become perpetrators.
The majority don't. Good often prevails, even against terrible odds. The perpetuation of evil isn't automatic.
So this brings us back to blame. If we're constantly blaming external things, the world, society, God, we get stuck.
That seems to be the point. He mentions a character in T.S. Eliot's play, The Cocktail Party. She has this realization. If her suffering is somehow her own fault, well, then she can do something about it. But if it's just the fault of a flawed reality, she's doomed, powerless.
And Alexander Solzhenitsyn is a key example here, isn't he?
A massive one. In the Soviet Gulag, facing unimaginable horror, he didn't just focus on blaming the system, though he certainly saw its evil.
What did he do?
He turned inward. He started examining his own life, his own past actions, even his youthful support for the ideology that led to the camps. He took responsibility for his part.
That must have been incredibly difficult.
Unimaginably. But that process of self-examination, acknowledging his own mistakes, resolving to change, that's what led to him writing the Gulag Archipelago.
A book that shook the world.
Exactly. And Peterson mentions others like Vaclav, Mahatma Gandhi, people who chose that path of inner transformation over simply blaming the external world.
So there's this idea of a cycle. He relates it to the Old Testament Hebrews.
Yeah, he notes this recurring pattern in their history. Success, then pride and corruption, then things fall apart, seen as judgment followed by repentance, taking responsibility, and then rebuilding.
Which poses a question. Do things fall apart just because reality is harsh? Or is it sometimes because we drop the ball? Our lack of attention, our irresponsibility?
It's a provocative question. He uses Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans.
Also.
Well, the hurricane was nature, yes. But the catastrophic flooding, largely due to the failure to maintain and upgrade the levees, despite knowing the risks.
A failure of responsibility.
Peterson calls it a sin of omission, not doing what needed to be done. He contrasts this with what he sees as an ancient Jewish tradition.
Which was?
When things went wrong, their starting point was often self-blame. Not in an erotic way, but rooted in a belief that reality itself is fundamentally good. So if things are breaking down, maybe we need to look at our own actions first.
Okay, so this all leads directly to the practical advice of the rule, the clean up your life part.
Exactly. This is where it gets personal for you, the listener, especially if you're feeling bitter, overwhelmed, resentful about life.
He says start small, right? Just look honestly at where you are now.
Yes. And he asks some really direct, searching questions. Things like, are you really taking advantage of your opportunities? Are you working hard?
Have you made peace with your brother? Are you treating your spouse and kids with respect?
Do you have habits, addiction, laziness, whatever, that are dragging you down? Are you shouldering your responsibilities?
Have you said the things you need to say? Are there things right in front of you in your own home or life that you know you could fix but haven't?
It all boils down to that core question. Have you cleaned up your life?
And if the answer is maybe, no, or not really, what's the first step?
It's deceptively simple, yet profound. Start to stop doing what you know to be wrong.
Just stop.
Start today. Don't get lost in endless philosophical debates about what's wrong in some abstract sense. Trust your own internal sense, that little nudge that tells you, yeah, probably should be doing this.
Listen to that inner compass.
Right. And he specifically advises against immediately jumping to blame big abstract things, capitalism, the government, whatever your go-to external villain is.
Why not?
Because the focus needs to be internal first.
Yeah.
Order your own experience, he says. Get your own house in order before you try to rearrange the world.
He uses that proverb, right? Bring peace to your household before you try to rule a city.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Peterson argues that focusing inward like this has real, tangible benefits.
Like what?
Clearer thinking. Your actual day-to-day experience improves. You start noticing more subtle ways you might be contributing to problems.
Life gets less complicated, maybe.
Simpler, yeah. Your judgment sharpens. You can untangle things from your past. You actually become stronger, less bitter.
So by dealing with your own stuff, the inevitable tragedies of life don't hit quite as hard. Or at least you don't make them worse.
That's the idea. You face them without the extra weight of your own bitterness and deceit. You build a stronger, less corrupted soul, one that can actually bear the difficulties.
And maybe even become a force for good.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
A force for peace, starting with yourself.
Yeah.
Peterson ends with this really, well, hopeful, almost utopian vision.
Which is?
What if everyone focused on ordering their own lives first? Maybe the world would stop being so evil. Yeah. Maybe even less tragic.
It raises the possibility of a radically better existence through collective personal responsibility.
Yeah, it all comes back to that core rule.
Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Peterson's sixth rule. It's certainly a lot to think about.
It really is. And just to leave you with a final thought, think about one specific small area in your own life right now that feels a bit messy, out of order. What's one concrete thing, just one step, you could realistically take today to start setting it right? And just maybe, how might focusing on that little bit of personal order ripple outwards in ways you can't even predict yet?